Welcome back to a Munchausen's Proxy, and you could probably tell by my voice why I was away so long. I spent about a week after the New Year without a voice at all due to strep throat, and I still haven't quite got it back to normal. Hopefully using it more will speed that up. Anyway, when last I left you, I had dropped the first of my spoiler reviews for Netflix's The Witcher: Blood Origin, a sophomoric attempt by Declan DeBarra to make The Witcher that Lauren Hissrich always wanted to make, but couldn't because Henry Cavill would have quit and made it very public as to why, killing the series faster than the horrible writing ever could. I want to thank everybody who watched that review, as it became my highest viewed video and broke the 1,000 view mark for me for the first time. I really appreciate all of the support and the kind words of those who commented on it for me. I am just sorry I was laid low by illness and couldn't follow it up before now, especially since there were a number of videos I wanted to make over the last 2 weeks and more, but I couldn't, either because of illness or because of my holiday schedule that had me busy and or away from the house until after the New Year. Having said all of that, let's get into the second installment of the painful to watch The Witcher: Blood Origin, shall we? And as always, this is going to be riddled with spoilers, but by this point I doubt that matters to anyone, since Netflix has already killed their would-be franchise. We open with more irritatingly redundant narration by Minnie Driver, and I really don't know how she did not strangle the idiots making her spout this drivel. All I can say is the paycheck must have been pretty good to make her embarrass herself like this. Anyway, she tells us about a dwarf woman seeking revenge against a soldier of the new Golden Empire, who she has tracked down to a tavern. After knocking on the door, the tavern keeper is less than helpful, slamming the door in her face. Looking less than put off in her drive to find who she is looking for, she sneaks in through a window with her warhammer that she talks to like a lover. For reasons? They show her breaking in, and then all we see is the outside of the tavern, while hearing her kick everyone in the tavern's ass as she sifts through them in search of the soldier she is seeking. Why not show a badass dwarf kicking a bunch of elven ass? Because they hired an actress who actually has dwarfism. And one of the problems with dwarfism is that it comes with certain physical limitations that would make them lousy warriors. There's a reason Peter Jackson hired regular-sized actors to play hobbits and dwarves in the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit movies, and then used camera tricks and digital effects to shrink them vis-a-vis the other actors. But I digress. The dwarf fails to find who she's looking for inside, despite assaulting a tavern full of people and throwing one dude out a window, and comes out to continue her search, promising the hammers she will find him. Then we get a scene that nobody in management on this production thought through. Military Guy and Lenny Henry are in a bathhouse together, and no, despite Military Guy's proclivities that we will see later, it is not a gay thing. They are having a soak, and seeing Military Guy naked is not helpful in selling the idea that he is supposed to be Military Guy. Dude is so skinny you can count his ribs and has the muscle tone of your average boy band member. Actually, that is doing a disservice to members of boy bands. They talk of assimilating the lands of the Empire and how the northern and southern cities are theirs, but that there is resistance building in the hinterlands that is beginning to disrupt supply lines. Military Guy complains that the merchants are, quote-unquote, taking advantage by raising prices, showing that the people running the show do not understand how economics works. Lenny Henry suggests hanging the merchants, but Military Guy counters with the idea of arresting the guild leaders, thereby keeping the merchants trading, but under their terms. Lenny agrees to it, saying they can always hang the merchants later if that fails. He ends the scene by telling Military Guy that he wants Ayla and company dead ASAP before they can inspire even more rebellion than they are already facing. Meanwhile, Ayla and company come across a city under attack by 3 armies of the Golden Empire, and they decide they need more men for their attack on the capital. Cian suggests mercenaries, but that will cost money, neatly setting up the next scene as they decide to hit a nearby bank in the town of Daedwoda in the former kingdom of Prussia. The village is practically deserted, and our band of idiots assumes everyone ran off into the forest when the empire was established, rather than assuming 2 fugitives wanted by said empire might be tracked, and therefore this is exactly what it screams, namely, a trap. The bank winds up being empty when they get there, except for the banker, who tells them that everyone came in and emptied their lockboxes when the soldiers arrived. He tells them that the only thing of value in the bank is them, pointing to 2 wanted posters with Ayla and Fjal's faces on them. And then he decamps through a trapdoor, locking it behind him. Which is when the trap springs, and a platoon of quote-unquote elite soldiers arrives to attack them. Like the script requires, the obliging stuntmen easily start dying until, for reasons, and so the rest of the episode can happen, Ayla loses her temper and breaks their formation so she can stick her knife in one of the soldiers a gratuitous number of times. Which of course is when Cian winds up being wounded. The soldiers retreat from the bank and seal the doors, setting the bank on fire. Only then does our trio of dullards break through the trap door and escape. Merwin is shown walking through the palace alone, and I will come back to that later, and a servant tries to assassinate her, saying it is for all the starving people struck by famine. A conveniently passing student mage kills the servant with magic. Later, Military Guy wants to put one of his most trusted lieutenants on her as a bodyguard, but she decides she wants the student mage instead, since his first instinct was to save her, and he was not connected to anyone in the military faction or one of Lenny Henry's underlings. The narrator then tells us that Ayla and company have someone hunting them, even as they show us the exact same thing. The dude from the tavern in Gaelth in the first episode is shown coming across the burned out bank. What the hell are the idiots running this garbage thinking? Are we too stupid to understand what they are showing us, and so we need Minnie Driver to tell us what is happening on the bloody screen? This is just such a waste of talent and money that it is criminal. Ayla and company come to a stop so Cian can rest. The other 2 spread out to look for herbs to help her wound. And that's the scene. That's it. Before they jump back to Merwin, explaining to the mage why she chose him to protect her, even though he is largely untrained. She also informs him that he is now in the same boat she is in, and that they will probably try to kill him just as they will try to kill her. She wants him to be her spy against the Military Guy and Lenny Henry. Then she takes his cloak as her only disguise and goes down into the city to see what is going on for herself, since she has been a virtual hostage inside the palace since the coup. And she just so happens to pass Military Guy and decides to follow him. She sees him go into a merchant's shop, a merchant he happens to be screwing on the down low. The 2 make out, despite Military Guy being pissed at the dude, who warned his fellow merchants that Military Guy was going to arrest the guild leaders, allowing them to flee. Lenny Henry is then shown having a vague conversation with his deaf, body positivity sidekick, who is worried Military Guy will find out what he is up to. Lenny tells her that he will transform with the chaos magic long before anyone can find out and do anything about it. Ayla and Fjall come back to Cien to find tavern guys standing over her. He tells them that she is not good, but he can get her healed. He wants revenge against the Empire too, for slaughtering a village that had taken him in. He wants to go with them because he thinks their story will be interesting, and it will allow him to pay back the people who killed those who were kind to him. He offers to take them to a witch nearby for healing. He carries Cien as they hit the edge of a misty marsh and tells them to try to get to the other side before disappearing into the fog. They follow him into the fog and begin to hallucinate. Fjall dreams of the battle where his brother was killed, and then trips into another where he is screwing Merwin with his dead brother watching. He begins drowning in blood spewing from Merwin's mouth before coming up through the water on the other side of the marsh. Ayla, on the other hand, dreams of burning a bunch of kids alive for her mother in order to earn her clan tattoos. Then she finds herself in a dark, watery place echoing with song and surrounded by crispy corpses. The eyes of the corpses open just as Fjall yanks her out of the water and back to reality. When they catch up with Tavern Guy, he is with a blonde woman, and he tells them the hallucinations allowed their memories to be read easier. Then Sindril appears out of the mists. And we cut to the crazy dwarf with the hammer who caught up to the soldier she was looking for, off camera, where she apparently killed him. She is painting a message on the wall with his blood that reads, "Here lies Taliesin of the One Eye, rapist, murderer, ended by Gwen of the Flowers. May he suffer eternity in the lost place," all while talking to her hammer and the dead body. When she is done painting the message, she leaves with her hammer. Lenny Henry takes some kids to the night-darkened square where the monolith is located, telling them they are going on an adventure to see a friend of his, because they are special. He activates the portal and they go visit his blue ball of energy. He kills the children and the children's energy is released, and he is briefly given a taste of what it feels like to have chaos magic before it goes away. When he demands to know why, the ball tells him much more will be required of him to sacrifice before he is transformed by the chaos magic. Military Guy wakes up in Merchant Lover's bed, and he hears Merwin talking to his lover. He grabs a dagger and slides it into his pants before trying to sneak a peek. Merwin tells him to join them without even looking behind her at him. He puts on a shirt and joins them in the next room. She offers an alliance with him against Lenny Henry, sweetening the deal by offering a title and position in her government as Minister for Trade with the Other Worlds for his lover. And she says she would allow them to marry once she consolidated her position as true Empress, not the figurehead she is now. She wants him to help her expand the Empire to the Other Worlds. Oh, and one last thing. She needs an heir, so she wants Military Guy to get Fjall back for her so she can make babies with him. This scene epitomizes what is wrong with the writing on this show, displaying the same kind of idiocy that scientists who beam the location of Earth out into the stars, assuming those they will meet will not destroy them. She is assuming she will be strong enough to conquer entire other worlds, when her military can't even secure her empire on the world they already inhabit. Never mind that they already know there are worlds with monsters like the one they used to overthrow the kings to make the empire to begin with. Absolute stupidity. But let's move on and go back to more stupidity with Ayla and company. They walk through the forest to the witch's home, which turns out to be a tree house woven into the branches of a few trees about 20 feet off the ground, and accessed by a thin ladder. They somehow, and I say somehow because of course they don't show it, they somehow get Cien up the tiny ladder, through the small hole into the nest. They go from showing the human-sized nest to all of them being in it, and Cien being healed by the witch. Ayla asks how the very pale, very white blonde chick and the very dark-haired, very obviously mixed African guy know each other, and she replies that they are brother and sister of a sort. They were born in the same village at the same time under the same burning star. Just like the kids Lenny Henry sacrificed, they are celestial twins with similar magical talents. And this just goes to emphasize Hollywood's inability to understand that not everywhere looks like Los Angeles, and that Los Angeles got to look that way very recently, well after the medieval level society that The Witcher is set in, never mind the much earlier age Blood Origin is set. Fjall is over with Sindril, asking him what happened in Zentrea after he was exiled. Sindril goes on about dreaming his entire life about reaching another world. He tells him that Lenny Henry locked him up after he found the monolith and traveled to another world with Lenny, finding the blue ball of energy that scared him but enthralled Lenny. He says that Lenny used the beast they saw on the other world to kill the kings and their protectors. It is then that he tells Fjall that Merwin slit his sister's throat during the coup. Sion is healed, and Sindril tells them all the monoliths are causing tears between the worlds, allowing strange energies to leak through, and likely destroying the world long before the lot of them can reach the capital. He proposes using a nearby monolith to go straight to Zentrea to destroy the monolith and kill the Empress and all who were involved in the coup. They cut to the monolith in the middle of the woods, guarded by 3 lax guards that helpfully die easily. Sindril opens a portal with the monolith, telling them that Lenny Henry still has not figured out that travel between monoliths is possible, and that it is not perceptible by Lenny Henry. They go through the portal but find themselves on a world with 2 moons rather than the courtyard of the palace. Ayla, for reasons, decides to explore some alien flora nearby, only to find out it is a lure for alien fauna. A centipede-looking monster rears out of the water and attacks. Ayla runs back to the others, and that is where they end the show. Let me start venting by saying it took me about 2 hours to watch this episode because I was having to pause and jot down notes on this or that stupidity every few seconds. The writing continues to be a joke, although not as bad as The Rings of Power, which literally had me cringing through episodes. With Blood Origin, I am just continually rolling my eyes. The complete lack of understanding of how medieval societies and worlds work is a continual bemusement and trips up the script time and again. The editing is ridiculous, cutting tiny scenes out of context with other scenes they should have been merged with, and making an overall choppy show. The cast choices fail the story time and again as well beyond the stupidity of ethnically diverse medieval villages. The most glaring example of this being the military guy, but he is far from the only one. Ayla and Lenny Henry and Merwin and body positivity sidekick and, well, I could pretty much list most of the cast as being either inappropriate to the role they are trying to play, or they are just bad actors unable to do anything with the nonsense script they have been handed. And yes, some of it is the writer's fault, but not all, not by a long shot. The set designs continue to be bad for the most part. Everything from the bank to the witch's nest were pretty ill thought out in this episode, with glaring problems with each set presented early on in the interactions of the characters in each case. They look cheap and poorly designed, both with a practical sense and an aesthetic sense. The palace in Zentrea is especially bad, looking nothing like a palace in medieval settings should. And no, I'm not even just using European models to compare it to. Whether it be Europe, the Middle East, India, or the Far East, medieval palaces had function above and beyond, looking overwhelming and impressing the power of those who dwelled within upon the masses. And the palace sets in this show display none of that. About the only thing that does not suck in this show are the arms and armor. But even there, it is just a base level competence that is being shown, and there are issues with specific people and arms. And then there's the actual story elements being depicted. The overall story should be a good one, but they have managed to screw even that up. The story is written in a herky-jerky sort of way, so that we are merely going from one convenient plot point to another. I am sure the dwarf will conveniently run into our intrepid morons in the next episode, since this show opened with Minnie Driver telling us that this story is about 7 warriors. Hal will probably be as contrived as the rest of this drivel. She opens the show by breaking into a tavern and kicking everyone's ass in said tavern, but the one she is looking for is not there. This is supposed to introduce us to her as a badass warrior, but it fell flat because we see nothing. It is all off camera, and it has to be that way, because someone with dwarfism cannot convincingly handle a warhammer. Their arms don't move well enough to be convincing, so this scene is flat and fails to meet its objective for anyone with half a brain. Actually showing someone kicking the ass of a tavern's worth of people to find a single soldier would have been awesome. Instead, we got this. The bath scene was unnecessary and merely highlighted military dude's wildly unsuitable physique for the role he is supposed to be playing. There is nothing about him that convinces me he could credibly wield a sword, never mind climb the ranks to become a general. The bank scene was pure idiocy and only designed to hook these 3 idiots up with Tavern Guy, Witch Chick, and Syndrel. No other purpose was served by it, and it was clumsily done, especially since it required Ayla to unreasonably lose her cool in the middle of a battle with overwhelming forces. Only the confined space and the soldiers' considerate lack of ability to storm the bank en masse allowed them to survive that fight at all. And then there was the trapdoor. First it is an obstacle forcing them to stand and fight, and then it is easily broken through and they escape. Lazy writing. They also continually show Merwin alone, but for a few servants here and there. Empresses and emperors are never alone. They have bodyguards and aides and advisors and hangers-on and ladies-in-waiting, and you get the idea. So the idea Merwin would be walking alone around the palace and a random servant could try to assassinate her without being killed or arrested long before she would have to fend him off is idiotic. I don't care whether she is a figurehead or not. She would never be left alone to wander about the palace like she was shown in this episode. Instead of showing and telling us about Tavern Guy, they should have simply shown him catching up to Ayla, Fjall, and Sian that night after they escaped the bank. Hell, you could still have had Sian be wounded. Such a thing would be expected when 3 people fight a platoon, but not because Ayla decides to go all berserker in the middle of a battle and prison shank a dude rather than killing him quick and getting back into formation. Tavern Guy could then have come upon them that evening while they were trying to patch up Sian and offer to take them to the witch for healing. And voila! The 6 wind up together in a more organic way that does not include stupidity and character alterations for no reason. So far, the only problems I have with the dwarf are what I've already laid out. She could have been a good character, but they decided to be present-day Hollywood rather than actual creators. The 2 scenes with her have had all of the good parts take place off-camera, including her finally caving in the soldier's head with the hammer before painting the wall red. And why they are long-stroking this whole Lenny Henry Blue Ball of Energy storyline is beyond me. This should not be taking this long, and is going to be the reason he fails. The Ball of Energy should tell him all of what is required for him to achieve his goal of chaos magic, and then we should see him trying to gather what he needs. But this doling out, inch by inch, of the journey to that goal is simply stupid and allows his enemies to progress while he has his thumb up his ass waiting for the blue ball of energy to give him what he wants. It is simply moronic. And finally, we come to our intrepid fools winding up on a different world rather than in the palace courtyard. Because this is only episode 2 and we have to fill up 2 more episodes of this bullcrap. Can you imagine what this show would have been like if they did not cut it down from the original 6-episode run that was planned? I imagine the head honchos at Netflix got the original cuts and watched them in horror before calling in Declan DeBarra and ordering him to cut it down to 4. They probably also scrapped any thoughts of not releasing this all at once, rather than trying to make it a 4-week event. So, there our fools are, on another world. The others try to get Syndrel to immediately send them back. What does Ayla do? She decides to go explore a world she knows nothing about after being told about the monster that killed her entire family during the coup. A monster that came from a different world. So, of course she winds up finding a monster. And equally predictably is that this is where they decide to end the episode. Like the first episode, this one was a train wreck from the start. Instead of an awesome opening of a dwarf just mauling a tavern full of people in search of one soldier to avenge her lost love, we get to watch the front of a frickin' tavern. And it did not get better from there. As others have said, and I will echo, this is the Witcher Lauren Histrich always wanted to make, but couldn't. All I can say is Henry Cavill must have seen this mess and what is going on in Season 3 of his own show, and decided to peace out before they completely buggered the entire Witcher franchise, with him as the poster boy. This is an awesome world that the bungling, incompetent, and malicious imbeciles at Netflix are running off a cliff even before it can become a bona fide franchise. And they are doing it on purpose. With Henry Cavill as Geralt of Rivia, it could have become the next Game of Thrones every studio in Hollywood has been searching for since before Season 8 of Thrones flopped so hard as to destroy multiple planned spin-offs before they could get off the ground. Only the well-crafted House of the Dragon has allowed Warner Brothers to even contemplate restarting that nascent franchise. The Witcher will never get there, and that is looking more certain than ever with the release of Blood Origin. 2 episodes in, and I am not looking forward to where this is going. I will leave it there. I would like to thank everybody again for giving me my first 1,000 view video, and I appreciate all of the support. I will leave my social media and Patreon links in the description, and I'm hoping to get the 3rd episode of Blood Origin out in a couple of days, assuming my voice is okay with me having done this one. And I will see you in the next video. Tschüss.